Hi everyone, my name is Sarah and today I'm going to show you how to make this scarf. I'm calling it the Even Moss Scarf simply because it's made with the Even Moss crochet stitch. It's a really simple pattern and it has these cute little tassels at the end, which I think add a lot of fun to the scarf. So if you want to learn how to make this, stick around, and I hope that you try this out yourself and end up making your own cute little scarf. So the supplies you need for this project include a crochet hook. I used a 9mm crochet hook. You'll also need a yarn needle with a relatively large eye to fit the chunky yarn. You need some scissors. It's recommended to have a ruler, but it's not entirely necessary, it's just for the tassels. The yarn I'm using is Bernat Softee Chunky yarn, and it's in the colorway gray blue. This is a category 6 yarn, so it's pretty bulky, which is really nice because it means the scarf will work up that much quicker. It recommends using an 8mm hook, but I ended up using a 9mm hook just because I liked the way that the stitches looked with a bigger hook instead. So you're going to want to start with a slip knot. The way that I make my slip knots is I just kind of fold the yarn over, take my working yarn, push up a loop, and then pull that tight. And then I'll move that onto my crochet hook and then pull that tight, but not too tight. You want to make sure that it moves around. So then we're going to start with chains. So the way that you chain is you wrap the yarn over your hook and then pull through the slip knot that you just made. So just repeat that, and we want to start with 12 chains. You can use any even number of chains. I just happen to use 12, but if you want your scarf to be thinner or thicker, then you can increase the chains. Just make sure that you have an even amount of chains. So again, to make a chain, just wrap the yarn over your hook and then pull up a loop. Okay, so I'm just pointing out that the loop on the crochet hook does not count. So if you want to count your chains, count all of the little V's that you've made. So you should have 12 chains in total, not including the loop on your hook. That one does not count. And we're going to start in the second chain from the hook. So if you count the chains that you made, it should be the second one, not the first one. And we're going to start with a slip stitch. The Even Moss stitch is just alternating slip stitches and half double crochets. So to slip stitch, yarn over and then pull up a loop, and then you want to just keep pulling that loop through the second loop on your hook. And I'll show that one more time. So going into the second chain that you made, insert your hook, yarn over, and then pull up a loop, and then continue pulling through. And then in the next chain, we're going to work a half double crochet. So a half double crochet is made by yarning over, inserting your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over one more time and pull through all 3 loops. And I'll show that one more time. And if this is too quick, I'll link to some videos that go into depth about each stitch and the Even Moss stitch as well. So if you're lost, you can check those links out. And you're just going to repeat that combo, so slip stitch and then half double crochet all the way across until you reach the final chain. So since we started in the second stitch from the hook, you're going to end up with 11 stitches, not 12. So I'm just working a slip stitch into the last chain of the row. You always want to start with a slip stitch and end with a slip stitch. And I'll just chain one, so I'll wrap my yarn around and then just pull up a loop. And the chain one does not count as a stitch. And then I'll turn my work. So now we have 11 stitches in even moss, and sometimes it's helpful to count just to make sure that you didn't forget one, especially in the beginning. You might not be able to see the stitches very clearly, so you just want to count those little V's that you make, and again, ignoring that chain that does not count. So just go ahead and count and make sure that you have 11 stitches if you're following along. Alright, so then we're going to start on row 2, and you're just going to repeat. So start with a slip stitch, and then half double crochet, and then slip stitch again. So a good rule of thumb is just to slip stitch on top of the slip stitches in the row below, and half double crochet on top of the half double crochets in the row below. So it's just the same pattern or the same combination of stitches across the entire row for the entire scarf. You're going to repeat alternating slip stitches and half double crochets until your scarf measures about 80 inches, which is about 203 centimeters. I didn't count how many rows that was for me. I was just going by length, so 80 inches, or if you want yours longer or shorter, then you can add or subtract, not crochet as many rows, so that you have your scarf of your desired length. Once your scarf reaches your desired length, whether that's 80 inches or something different, we can go ahead and cut the yarn and pull through our last chain one. And then we can go ahead and weave in our ends. So the way that I weave in my ends for this is I work my way across using my yarn needle, going in between the stitches so that it doesn't pop out from either side, but you want to make sure that the end of your yarn is securely woven in so that your work doesn't unravel. That would be very sad. You can weave in your ends however you like. I'm kind of just going across. The half double crochets have 3 loops that kind of form on the other side, or on the back side of the stitch, so I kind of just work my way across and then down and then across and then up. I don't know if that really makes sense, but you can kind of see what I'm doing here, and I just repeat that until I feel like I've woven in a good amount, and then I cut the yarn and kind of stretch it out to make sure that it hides itself. Once your ends are woven in, you can start on the tassels. So I made my tassels about 6 inches long. I really wanted some nice long tassels at the end of my scarf to make it drape really nicely and kind of give it a cozier vibe. So I actually cut 12-inch pieces of yarn since they're going to be folded in half. And each tassel I made 3 strands. This is a category 6 yarn. It's pretty chunky, so I didn't want it to be overly bulky, so I figured 3 strands was good, but you can make it as thin or as puffy as you want your tassels to be by cutting more or fewer strands. Once you have your 3 strands cut to your desired length, you can take your scarf, and we're going to work into the end of the scarf, whether that's the foundation chain or the last row that you made. So I'm just showing you what the tassels will look like once you're done. Mine are nice and long, and I think that they just add a nice little touch. So I'm pointing out here I only have 8 tassels, even though we have 11 stitches. 11 tassels was going to be too crowded, so I went with fewer tassels than stitches. You're going to take your crochet hook and insert it into the corner of one of the ends of your scarf. Take your folded pieces of yarn, loop those through the hook of the crochet hook, the hook portion of the crochet hook, and then pull up a loop. And then I remove my crochet hook, insert my fingers, and then just pull the ends through that loop, essentially just tying a knot. And then you can pull that tight. And you can space out your tassels however you want. I only made 8 tassels, even though I had 11 stitches, just because it was going to be too crowded if I did 11 tassels. So again, insert your hook into the next stitch or whatever stitch you're working into, fold your 3 strands, hook those on, and then pull up a loop. And then tie a knot with the ends. And you're going to repeat that across the entire end of the scarf and add as many as you want. So this is the final result. This is what both ends look like when you have all the tassels attached, and I think that it adds such a nice little feature to this scarf that makes it hang just really nicely when you're wearing it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and you try this out yourself. It is a pretty simple pattern, so it's great if you're getting into crochet and you want to make a garment for yourself, but maybe a sweater is a little too intimidating. A scarf is a great project to kind of jump into the garment making world. If you try this out yourself, make sure to tag me on Instagram at _rainydaycrochet. So I hope you enjoyed and you have a great day, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye!